Hello everyone, Mrs. Milanovic here. I teach art at Coreyton Elementary School and I also teach art at Rita Elementary School, so hello to all my students, I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to do a little printmaking exploration. So printmaking includes things such as stamping, stencils. You could start with a surface and carve out of the surface and print what's left. You could start with a surface and add to it and then print what the raised part looks like. So there's many different types of printmaking, but we're going to do a simple exploration with things you probably have around your house. You're going to need some paper, some scissors, some glue, some markers, and you might find other items at your house that you can use to explore after the video. So before we get started, I wanted to show you a few artists that were printmakers to get you inspired. So let's take a look at some artists and then I'll be back in just a moment. So we are ready to explore. Artists often experiment with materials and explore them and find new ways of using things before they actually try to make a real piece of art with something. So today we're just kind of experimenting with materials and seeing what works and what doesn't work, and maybe you'll get some ideas of how you want to use your exploration in a real piece of art. So I've rounded up some things that I thought might work for this. One is a lid, just a little round lid. One is this can. I thought maybe the bottom would work. We could make a print of that with some markers. I also found a leaf. I thought maybe that might make a good print. I don't know, its veins aren't super large, but we'll see. And then I found this really cool lid. I don't know if you can tell, but it's got some writing on the top that's a raised texture. So things with a texture on them that's sort of raised up or bumpy might work well. Okay, so we're going to use some markers, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to experiment and see what works. So I thought I might start with this lid, and I may just try to use my marker around the edge of it, and we'll see if it can make a print. So I've outlined it. Now I'm going to try to stamp it on my paper. That didn't really work very well. Let's try, what if I colored in the back side of this lid? Think that would work better? We will see. Pressing down. Hey, that made a print. I wonder if it would make another print. Try. It did make a little bit of a print. Let's try the bottom of this can. I wonder if that would work. And so when you're exploring, you can find all kinds of materials and you can just test it out. See what you think. See if something you predicted would work actually does work. See if what you predicted would work doesn't work. It doesn't always work out, but that's how we learn what works. Trial and error sometimes. Okay, so I've colored in around the edge of this can. Let's see if it makes a print. Ooh, that made a pretty nice print. Let's see if I turn the light off if you can see better. What if I did the inside part of this? You could do different colors. The neat thing about printmaking is if you want, you can make one image over and over again. If you wanted the same image to stamp with, you can make a whole design with it. Let's try this one. This is pretty interesting because this has that textured top. So I'm just going to color across the whole thing and see if I can get this to print. Let's see how that turns out. Do you think it will make a print? Okay, let's see. Turning it over, pressing it down. One thing you want to do when you're trying to make a print of something, I'm trying not to let my paper move, and I'm trying not to let my item that I'm printing move after I've turned it over. If it moves, it's going to smear the print. Oh, look at that! That's pretty interesting. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Oh, what do you notice about this? See how it flipped the words? These words are like the mirror image of how they actually are. So that's another thing that's really interesting when you're making prints. If you're using something like a stamp, whatever you stamp, it's going to show up as the mirror image on your paper. So if you're creating your own stamps, you might want to keep that in mind, especially if you're using words so that they will turn out the way you want them to. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this leaf. This is pretty interesting. Now it's not a very bumpy leaf, so I predict that it's not going to make a great print, but we'll test it out and see. You might have done leaf rubbings before where you put them under your paper. Maybe we could try that next. Flip it over. Might need some new paper. So once I put it down, I'm not going to let it move. I'm not going to let my paper move. Let's see. Ooh, that's kind of neat. It did make a print. Cool. Alright, that sort of worked. Let's put it under our paper and try to make a print with our crayons this time. I'm going to just choose a dark color. Prints tend to turn out better if you use darker colors. Okay, so I've got my leaf there. I'm going to sort of remember where it is. I can feel it with my fingers. So I'm going to do my crayon rubbing and while I'm sort of holding the leaf in place with my other fingers. Here we go. I'm starting to see it. I'm going to make sure I get all the outside edges before I let that leaf move. If it moves, you're going to have a smeary sort of leaf that's not complete. Oh, look at that. Cool. So if I wanted to make a whole page full of leaves and I wanted to make a design, maybe I could do one up like that, then turn it a different way, do another one beside it, and I could make a pattern out of that. That would be interesting. Alright, now let's see. Let's try a different type of printmaking. We're going to make sort of a very simple collage. And a collage is a print made from a collage. So a collage is when you can glue paper, textures, whatever you want to a backing. So this piece of paper is a little bit sturdy, a little bit thicker, and I'm going to use that as my base. I'm going to cut out some shapes to glue on top. Basically what I'm doing is creating a texture. I'm creating a raised surface. Maybe I'll do some interesting shapes. Like that. And it really turns out nicely if you layer the shapes. Maybe I'll put a little triangle on top of that. And for this part, it doesn't really matter what colors you use, because you'll see in the next step that you're going to be coloring with your crayon on top of all this. So it's not really going to matter what color you use for your paper. A lot of times, to make a collagraph print, you would actually roll your collage with ink. You could also brush it down with some paint, and then put a piece of paper on top and capture the textures that show up. But I didn't have any paint with me today, so we're going to just do a crayon rubbing of this and see what textures that we see. This is a type of printing called collagraph. We're just going to do a crayon rubbing of our collagraph plate. There we go. Maybe I'll add one more. The layered parts really turn out cool because they are creating a texture. So I'm going to put plenty of layers there. Now, if I drew something on here, it's not going to show up in my print, and you will see why. Just a moment. Let me grab this paper that I was working with. So I'm going to take all this little collage that I just made, very simple. Now if you have other things that have textures on them, like maybe some twine or some string, something like that you could glue down, it would really make a nice print. Or something like anything textured, really. That's not super pokey, that's going to poke through your top paper. Alright, I'm going to stick a sheet of paper on top of my little collage, and I can kind of see through to see where it is. Now I'm going to take a dark colored crayon again. I'm going to hold those two papers down very carefully. And then I'm going to just create a crayon print, a crayon rubbing of my collage. Look at that. That's pretty neat. So it shows up because you've created textures, you've created a raised surface to print by gluing all those papers down. So you could experiment with this by, how else could you experiment? You could turn it a different way. Maybe I want to create with a different color. Maybe I want to overlap them. Maybe I could turn it like slightly off from my first one, and I could create the illusion of movement if I do a lot of rubbings close together. Overlap them. So you decide how you want to explore with your materials. There's no right or wrong answer. You're just seeing how the materials work, and maybe that gives you ideas. Hey, those look kind of like eyes. Maybe I wanted to create some sort of crazy face with all this. Maybe I wanted to go back to my lid from before and create some stamps for like a little nose or a mouth or something, or create another collage and then do a rubbing to make the rest of the face. So there's all different ways you can explore with your prints. And these are just a few simple materials. You've probably got your own materials at home that are different than mine, so you could create something very different. Look at that. Maybe you want to do a few and then you could add on to your collage, your original collage, and then add some more and do another rubbing. So you decide how you want to do your own. That's the fun part about art. You get to decide how you want it to look. Alright, so those were just a few simple ways to explore with the materials you have, to explore printing. I hope you had a good time today, and I hope that you continue to explore on your own. Thanks for watching.